Hi, my name is Jason. I'm 15 and I live in Leander, Texas. And my question was actually going back to what we were discussing before the call. So, at the beginning of the call, we were talking a little bit about election security and some of your work to do with that. So, you were talking a little bit how the government doesn't really have much power when it comes to ensuring election security on the federal level because it's all handled on the state level. So, what is there that can be done to ensure election security?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jason. So as we were talking about, but for the big audience, something that the United States does that really no other major democracy does is we push the responsibility for deciding how elections are run to the local level, right? And so there's something like 9 to 10,000 different authorities in the United States at the county, city, and state level that are responsible for elections. At other countries, they'll have a central election commission that sets all these rules. We don't do that in the United States. We do have an election assistance commission. We have the Federal Elections Commission that does around advertising and but we don't really promulgate real rules about the security of machines, how machines should be voted, all that kind of stuff. And that's a huge problem when it comes to security. The metaphor I used before is what we're effectively doing is we're asking like local police officers to deal with things that we would normally reserve for like the Air Force, right? Like, here where I live, we have the San Mateo County Sheriff's Department, we have the San Mateo County Fire Department. If my house is burning down or my car gets broken into, that's their job. If a Russian bomber flew over and dropped a bomb on Stanford, that would not be the responsibility of the San Mateo County Sheriffs or the Stanford Police Department to deal with. That's the Air Force's problem. But that is how we've handled security for elections. That we have the equivalent of these local authorities who are now responsible for defending against professional hackers that work for other adversary nations. What can we do about it? So for 2020, nothing, right? So like the truth is for the actual security of the election, most of the cake is baked. There's some people putting some frosting on it right now, but that is, right now, most of these efforts are around adjusting to COVID. And that's the other crazy thing that people were already planning for 2020 to be a chaotic election, but now that it is not safe for people to congregate and to touch the same touchscreens, 50 different states are reacting in 50 different ways. And so a lot of the effort that was going towards security is now going to like, just how the heck are we going to vote? And so you have people trying to buy machines, buying services, printing ballots, all of that kind of stuff is happening. And my fear is that security is going to be an afterthought because people are just trying to do the basics to operate the election right now. So after 2020, I think what we need is there have been a couple of different bills that have been proposed that have massively centralized rulemaking on how this stuff can do it. So I think we need the Voting Rights Act to be renewed. That's just about basic access to elections. I would love to see laws that make vote by mail something that's pretty much standard. Oregon has been all vote by mail for quite a while, and they have some of the lowest rates of fraud and some of the best numbers for people participating in elections, right? So you can do vote by mail safely. And I don't think it should be 100% for all states. I think it's reasonable to allow people to vote in person, but that should be like the kind of default that we push for. And then we're going to need a capability in the federal government, either have the Election Assistance Commission become more powerful or more likely give some rulemaking capability to DHS CISA, which is the Cyber and Infrastructure Security Agency that does election security, give them some ability to come up with basic rules for election security and have that tied to federal funds. Turns out this is constitutional. In the Constitution, Congress is allowed to set the rules for how members of Congress are elected. It's funny enough, they can't set the rules for how the president is elected, but they can set the rules for how Congress is elected. And because the election happens at the same time as the presidential election, then if you cover the congressional elections, hopefully you've now secured the presidential elections as well. But I think that's going to have to be one of the first things the next Congress does in 2021 is address this issue.